I have been a fan of Death Note for a very, very long time, and I haven't watched it in years. Honestly, it was my first anime show that I've ever watched. It was suggested to my brother, and I have been diving into anime shows ever since, and who knew what I was missing? I always thought it was like some really super cringy thing, and Death Note really was the show that introduced me to this beautiful world of art. We're going to be talking about Death Note today because I recently watched a few recap videos, and I wanted to talk about it on this channel because I remember the story well enough where I can dive in through every point. I have a list of points over on my other monitor over here that I'm going to be touching on. We're going to be talking about the entire series of Death Note, giving my thoughts on it, going through the plot, what I liked, what I didn't like. We're going to talk about all of that today, and of course, a spoiler review. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with too many YouTube channels. Let's start with Death Note. So, I'm sure that I have to address the elephant in the room. I am one of those people who is very pro Kira. I think bad people have no business being here, okay? Where Light actually ends up going wrong, and something that we're going to talk about, is when he decides to start killing people for fun, or killing people just because they're coming after them. And when the first episode started, he's going to bring justice to the new world. The world is rotten. I agree with that. And I would totally be like, heck yeah, Kira, you're the GOAT, man. But then he starts killing innocent people, or just people that are speaking out against him. That's where Light ends up going wrong, and I thought it was a phenomenal series. But I'm going to talk about more about Kira and my thoughts about Kira as we continue down the story. So, we're brought up to Light. He's a high school student. He is obviously shown to be one of the smartest people in existence, right? And Ryuk ends up dropping his death note into the world. Light comes across it, picks it up, and reads it. It's like, oh, if you're thinking of this person's face, you write down their name, that person shall die. Light kind of ends up making fun of this book, and he brings it home, and then is watching TV, and he is like, oh, Death Note, someone's name will die. This is a stupid book. And he just looks at Criminal, writes the name down, and then this is where he figures out that it's actually real. He's freaking out. He tests it again just to make sure that he's not going crazy. And then all of a sudden, like, we're diving into this show right away because then Ryuk approaches him, and of course, Ryuk is a Shinigami, and I don't even know if actually, this might sound really dumb coming out of my mouth, okay? Might sound really dumb. I don't know if Shinigami are part of any, like, spiritual thing that's actually believed in the world or not. Don't know if that's part of any religion or anything along those lines. That may sound really dumb coming out of my mouth, but I truthfully don't know. But regardless, for the sake of it, I'm going to say it's complete fiction, which I would imagine is true. He ends up finding a Shinigami, a god of death, appears to him because he touched a notebook, and that is Ryuk's notebook. Ryuk tells Light that he can use the book however he would like to, but the only thing is, there is a condition with it. He doesn't go to neither heaven or hell, and Ryuk is going to be the one who ends up writing Light's name in his book when it's time for Light to die. And throughout the episode, before Light actually comes to this, like, idea that he's going to become god of the new world, we're kind of brought through Light's kind of the way he looks at the world. He's walking around, he's sitting in school, everything's so boring, and that's where him and Ryuk both come together. They are both bored, and I love what Light says, because this is something that I completely identify with Kira with, is this world is completely rotten. And if Light was alive today, like, what was that made in, like, 2006, 2007? That the world has gone nothing but even more downhill in that sense. This world has gone nothing but even more rotten, and we need a Kira. And Light just declared with his brand newfound powers, he's going to be the god of the new world. He's going to punish criminals because somebody has to do it. This world can't keep going on like this, and Light takes it upon himself, like I said, to become the new god who delivers justice. So Light continues watching the news. He keeps punishing criminals. He keeps writing the names into the notebook, and criminals are dying by heart attacks over and over again. But by the way that this keeps happening, the police actually end up investigating this, and then there's this big, like, group together of agents, police force, and everybody's talking about, like, you think this could actually be a god punishing people? What is wrong? And there's other people saying, like, how can everybody just die after they're on TV, which is crazy. And if you think about it in the real world, right, like, what would people think? I think people are getting more and more godless as time goes on, so I feel like people will be like, I don't know, maybe people will talk about it being medicine or something like that, but I'm trying to think of, like, what if this actually happened, which would be really, really interesting. But anyways, we are then officially introduced to L, the big rivalry of L and Light, and I'm like most Death Note fans, while I do agree with Kira more than I agree with L, I still really like L. I found him super interesting. He comes in, he's like this big time guy who has never ever been unable to solve a case before, and he doesn't show his face. He is the one that's going to take on this new mission. He ends up suggesting that the killer is a student because, of course, the time in where that the killings are taking place with. And El also thinks that he has a naive concept of justice. He completely disagrees with what Kira is doing. This is where I was sitting down, like, at this point in the show, I'm like, okay, how could you hate somebody like this? Right? I won't have to worry about my wife going out at night or anything like that if she's like walking alone home from the store or something like that. Like, my wife doesn't go out at night, but I'm sure that happens all the time, right? I just live in like a really, really nice area, but there are so many bad things that happen constantly. The city next to me, man, is so crime ridden. You can't walk alone. You can't do it at night. And so, like, if there was a Kira there just taking care of people, like legitimate bad people, I'm not talking about like people who, you get what I'm talking about, like really bad people. Like, for example, with Light, when he was using the Death Note, he saw somebody that was putting his hands like on a girl where she clearly didn't want it. That guy, there's no justice for that. And now I'm sitting here so many years later, and over the years, and I've been a little bit more open about this on YouTube, I've been diving a little bit more into my faith. This is the problem. I have such a hard time with my faith because I am so like, no, why should this person be allowed to exist, right? Somebody who just sees a girl at a gas station, puts his hands on her, touches her so inappropriately, why should that person be forgiven, and why should that person be allowed to do it to somebody else? Kira would solve that. But like I said, I'm having problems with my own faith because you can't hold grudges, always forgive, and they will be punished after death. But I'm like, that doesn't fix anything. That doesn't fix anything. I don't care that he's going to get punished after death. I don't want him to touch more people. You know? I just have a daughter. I don't want to worry about that stuff. Having a Kira here would be amazing. So I've always struggled with that kind of stuff internally. I've always struggled with forgiveness. I've always struggled with like keeping like the happy face on and being A-okay. Like, hey, it's okay that you screwed me over, sir. I'm like, no, I can't, man. I can't. But got a little off track there. We are then brought to L trapping Light with the TV broadcast. He ended up talking about like, oh, we have all of these agents going on, and he ended up broadcasting it to specific different regions. So when Light actually acted upon and killed the Lind L. Taylor, who was the fake person, he figured out like that it was able to narrow down Light's location, and Light got trapped immediately. And this is where I started disagreeing with Light, because just because somebody's trying to catch you doesn't mean like, I understand the logic of needing to eliminate him, but Light like kind of liked the challenge. He's like, L, I'm gonna find you and I'm going to kill you. Like, I'm gonna write your name in the book. That's not the vision that I like, man. You gotta understand that people are gonna come after you, right? But on the other side of the coin, what's Light supposed to do? If I was doing what Light was doing, I wouldn't have it in me to kill somebody like L, because L isn't really doing anything wrong. You can look at it from L's perspective and saying that Kira is just a murderer. You're not allowed to kill people. Why should Light be able to deem himself to be a god? I understand that. But ultimately, Light is doing a good thing. One thing leads to another, and L starts suspecting that Kira has ties with the police and has some information from them. Light's kind of thinking about the situation, going about his day, and then Ryuk starts annoying him because, of course, obviously nobody can see Ryuk except for Light, and Ryuk's being kind of annoying to Light. Why are you so chatty? Why are you being so on edge? And this is where we're introduced to Ray Pember, because Ryuk goes, hey, Light, you've been being followed for a little while. And this is where Light kind of starts going crazy. Like, there's no way they could have suspected me that far. Maybe they just figured out somebody has ties with the police. And Light's still remaining calm. We're introduced to, from the background, Ray Pember. Ryuk then opens up to Light that there is a little bit more about the Death Note that you actually can take advantage of. You can sacrifice half your life to get the Shinigami eyes, which means obviously, and I'm sorry that I keep saying obviously, like I know if you're watching this, you watch the show, but I feel like I have to explain it now that I'm reviewing the entire thing, but you are able to sacrifice half your life in order to get the Shinigami eyes, which means that you can see a person's name and lifespan above their head. Light kind of makes it seem like, or the show kind of makes it seem like Light's thinking about it, but then Light just completely dismisses it and goes, no, I'm going to be god of the new world. This world's going to be free of criminals. I can't sacrifice half my life doing that. And he's like, doesn't even really think about it, and he devises a very, very smart plan to get this federal agent to reveal himself. And I don't know, I always wonder like how different the show would go if Light actually ended up getting the eyes, because that would have solved things so quickly. But then again, could you really just turn around and kill Ray Pember? No, you couldn't, because that would just kind of out himself as Kira. Same reason why when L actually comes and introduces Light, or himself to Light, excuse me. It's just very, very interesting the entire way that the show goes. So what we don't know is that Light starts having a plan and an experiment, and he starts experimenting, by the way, with a bunch of different criminals and seeing how much he can actually influence their actions before they die. And he figured out that, like, as long as something is feasible, it'll happen. If he writes down something specific before they die, like, hey, I'm going to tap on my microphone, I'm going to go over to that table and bash my head in, I will go do that. But if you were to say, like, hey, if you write my name in the book and you want me to go all the way to England, that's literally not possible. So you can make people do a lot of things, and this is where he actually took everything into consideration, because then we have the bus jacking, and Ray Pember, because he's following Light planned a date, he gets this criminal to do a bus jacking, and he, funny enough, he ends up having Ryuk reveal himself to him because he touched a piece of the Death Note by passing notes. And I love Ryuk, dude. He's so funny because, like, oh, you can see me. Oh, I see what Light did. And the guy's just, like, freaking out and shooting at nothing. And Ray Pember, actually, because Light was planning on taking action, it forced Pember to reveal his own name to Light. The plan with Light then continues because Light followed Ray Pember onto a train, and, well, I mean, he snuck up on Ray Pember and was kind of like, hey, if you turn around, I'm going to kill you. And then he just killed the janitor to make him believe him, so Pember had to do what Light did. And what he had Pember do is write on pages of the Death Note the names of all of his fellow agents, every single one, coming to, I think it was the Kanto region. Is that how you say it? The Kanto region of Japan. Apologies on my geography, needs some work. But regardless, Pember obviously doesn't know that he's writing in the Death Note. He has to wait this entire time. But Pember also is thinking this whole time, like, I know that voice, but I can't put a face to it. And this is where Light really, really starts to slip into evil, because he's enjoying not only the competition, which, you know what, fair game if you're enjoying the competition, but his victory, his smile. He's enjoying making himself present, because he ended up killing Ray Pember after he forced Pember to kill all of the agent names, and he ended up having a heart attack as the train door was opening, and Light made sure he was there, just looking at him with, like, an evil, evil grin, just like, you know that creepy face that they make of Light? Like that. And then, like, that creepy laugh that he has. I watched the dub. I don't know how anybody watches a different language. I watched the dub, and the voice actor for Light is perfect. Like, that evil laugh that he has. And this is where I was off the Kira train. Like, I was off the Kira train when he decided he wanted to kill L. I still thought he was doing a good thing, but just taking joy in killing Pember, that's not okay in my opinion. So Pember's wife, we learn, also ended up working with L. She's a very, very accomplished agent herself. She wants to solve the case, although Pember told her not to solve the case, but she kind of has the idea that it was somebody that Pember was investigating, or somebody on that bus, but a little bit down the road. So the FBI decides to not the FBI. A lot of agents from the FBI decide to not pursue Kira anymore because of everybody is dying. I think it was the American president. Regardless, a bunch of people around the world said, hey, we're not doing this anymore. People are dying, but L wanted to continue on with the task. Light Yagami's father and a couple other people wanted to still remain on the Kira case, and there were only 5 or 6 of them that remained. And L ended up having a meeting because obviously they needed to trust L, they needed to see L, and this is where we are revealed to L. In that secret meeting, L kind of just says that he wants to start investigating, and he determined among everybody that Kira is not among them, but Kira does have ties to the police. So he wanted to investigate everybody, and everybody that's working there, and the police and their families, which is why Light is going to be one of the suspects. But we then move on to one of my favorite parts of Death Note, just of, like, the tense part of it, the emotions into it, this poor girl, Light, really, really becoming evil, because he ends up just coincidentally running into Ray Pember's wife. The name is escaping me at the moment, but he ends up convincing her, and I'm not going to walk through the entire scenario because obviously I don't remember it. I have not watched the show in a very long time, so she ends up, like, she gives him a fake name, and Light kind of has to screw it out of her by, like, saying, hey, I'm working with the dad. My dad's chief of the police, and all right, you got me. I'm actually one of the people working with L right now. And he offered to hire her, and that's how he ended up getting her real name. And he was so nice to her, so caring, understanding that she just lost her husband. This girl's going through so much. And even just the way that this whole thing was presented, right? I remember it snowing. I remember one of the officers walking by. I remember, like, the silence being so loud about it. After a long time of them speaking, I want to say it was most of the episode, Light ended up actually, after getting her driver's license, wrote it under his watch, and then she asked him, like, hey, why do you keep looking at your watch if you don't mind me asking? And Light, slipping a little bit more further into the evil person that he's becoming, just looks at, oh, that would be because I'm Kira. And the girl just like, and he controlled her. She starts walking away. Light makes her kill herself. And where Light is doing this in broad daylight, because she wanted to talk to the dad, he turned off his phone. He was freaking out a little bit throughout the whole thing. He turned off his phone. He's like, as she's walking away, ready to, I don't remember. I think she hung herself, but I can't remember. But he ended up opening the phone and being like, hey, my dad might call back. You still want to talk to him? He might call any second. She's like, no, that's okay. And Light's just like enjoying every little moment of this. And even the way that they drew it up, right? She's walking away and was she walking to a noose? I don't recall. I'm sorry, but she walked into something that represented that she was going to end her life. And Light, obviously explaining it to the viewers, said that death by self-deletion, I know that's a touchy word on YouTube, is a perfect way for her to go because maybe she was sad about her husband dying. With Ray Pember's wife ending up like missing or supposedly dead, Elle ends up really shortening the list of everybody that's being investigated into the people that Ray Pember was following, one of which being Light Yagami, of course. So Light had this way of figuring out how people entered his room, and Ryuk was going crazy. He's like, Light, why won't you talk to me? Why won't you talk to me? I want my apples. And Light ended up figuring out that there were cameras and bugs like literally everywhere. So Elle and Light's father were watching the cameras as Light just read some naughty magazines and watched some TV and studied. And Elle, of course, was saying, hey, he is way too normal. But then we have the infamous potato chip. I will take a potato chip and eat it. And he started killing criminals through a bag of potato chips and was just getting away with it while he was being watched over the cameras because he obviously had Ryuk by his side. Elle is still suspicious about Kira at this time and decides that he wants to meet him in person. And that is like the ultimate game plan by him because Light is having his exams. And not only does Elle interrupt his exams, he just sits next to him and he's like, oh, Light Yagami. Your father is whatever his name is, and Sorichio Yagami. I don't remember what the exact name was. I apologize, guys. But Light just kind of dismisses him, thinking about it, and you have that bunch of internal dialogue there. And Elle just goes, I'd like to tell you that I'm Elle. And then Light like freaks out on the inside. He's like, he got me. And again, I love the way that Death Note, I've never seen a show like this. The way that it's so tense in the way that they're all thinking, right? You can tell what Elle's thinking, you can tell what Kira's thinking, and they're just going back and forth with together, right? And Elle's name at this point wasn't Elle. He just went by Ryuga. I don't remember the first name, or that was his first name. Regardless, Ryuzaki. I thought it was Ryuga. Ryuzaki may have been another name. Maybe it was Ryuzaki. Sorry. Either way, Light is freaking out on the inside because he can't kill Elle. If he kills Elle, then everybody would know that he's Kira, and he's just going to let Elle just taunt him like this. And Light wants to kill him more than anything. Light's slipping a little bit more into the darkness, right? So they end up being friends. They have a nice tennis match where they're kind of, I don't know, it was kind of useless, but it was still entertaining at the same time. He's like, well, would Kira want to win? And Light's like, oh, should I let him win? Because obviously, like, Kira might want to win, but then he might suspect that. And it was just like this mental battle back and forth. It was an insane tennis match. But after that, Light ends up getting a call. His dad's in the hospital. There was a little bit of a scare with a heart attack. Maybe he was dying, but everything ended up being okay, of course. And what happened after that is they were walking out. Elle still suspects Light, and he literally just says, I think you're Kira still. Maybe a 5% chance, 1% chance, but you could be Kira. And Elle seems convinced, not saying just 5%. He seems convinced at this time. So Light ends up saying, hey, why don't you lock me up so I can't do anything until you're satisfied? And Elle likes the idea, but he's like, why would you pose that? What do you have planned over there? And the episode that we're currently on ends with somebody from Sakura TV broadcasting a message claiming to be Kira. We're then brought to the entire incident with Sakura TV because Sakura TV was forced to broadcast several pre-recorded audio messages which were supposedly from Kira. We have this entire situation where anybody stopping the building or getting close to the building was just flat out dying, right? Because throughout the entire time we knew that Kira needed a name and a face to kill, but this person doesn't have anybody's names. Kira is just gunning them down one by one. Light's dad ends up saving the day from the hospital. He's like, hey, I will do anything to help the situation. But then Light kind of figures out that, maybe somebody else has Kira's powers. Maybe this is going to be a second Kira. Everybody's like, second Kira? What's going on? But then almost immediately we're brought into the second Kira, which is, of course, Misa Amane. And Misa is goated. Who wouldn't want a girl like Misa, right? Come on, like, actually, that's not true. I wouldn't want to date, like, some super famous model, but Misa is just nice-hearted. She loves Kira, dedicated to him for saving her life, and she truthfully likes justice, right? Just like the Kira, Misa is the GOAT. She'll do anything for her boyfriend, and she's going to be even better with time to come. Little annoying, but hey, have somebody that is just like overly affectionate to you is way better. And I wouldn't even say it's a bad thing. It's just a little bit too loud for me. That's the problem. Like, could you imagine? Oh my God, Kaya! Like, it's too much, okay? Other than that, Misa's the GOAT. We're introduced to Rem, and right away we also learn that Misa has made the ideal, and that would explain why everybody was just dying outside of that. It wasn't Kira, obviously. It was the second Kira. Light and the detectives end up having a meeting, and, well, he had a meeting with L, because L wanted to have him look at a bunch of pictures, and there wasn't really anything to break down there, but they have to make a plan for the second Kira, and L kind of goes to Light and's like, hey, I think you would make the perfect second Kira. Why don't you write a message as to what the original Kira would say? We're going to reply to the second Kira and broadcast it, just as Kira would. Why don't you do that, Light? And Light's like, okay, dude. Okay. Misa responds to everybody and just drops that she has a death note and a Shinigami, and thankfully nobody really kind of paid attention to that. She's like, Elle just kind of sat there and was like, could gods of death really exist? But nobody really kind of caught on to it, which is a little bit surprising because Light also dropped the note to Elle earlier, said, hey Elle, did you know that gods of death love apples? After that, we learned a little bit more about Rem and how to actually kill a Shinigami because Misa is interested, and we learn about this entire story where Rem tells the story, which Misa didn't know, that she was going to get attacked, and she was saved by a Shinigami who fell in love with Misa. So what Shinigami can't do is alter a human's life, which I always found a little bit strange because Shinigamis write people's names in their notebook all the time. Isn't that like changing their lifespan? But anyways, it doesn't matter. This Shinigami ended up saving Misa from an attack, and she's been very grateful to Kira ever since. Kira wasn't actually the one who saved her, but it was a Shinigami. And because the Shinigami saved Misa, that Shinigami ended up dying. And we learn about a little bit more of Misa. We learn a little bit more about Rem. And Misa is still so grateful to Kira and what he's doing because more people can be saved, like the situation that she had for her. And that's the best thing about Kira, man. People like that won't exist. People harassing people in alleyways. Nice little girls. They should be able to go where they want, dude. But anyways, Misa ends up sending another message saying that she wants to meet the original Kira, and she ended up having like a list of things to do or something like that, where they kind of had to figure out a bunch of cryptic messages, but Light figured it out, and he was going to go to the event, which was a baseball game or a group outing or something along those lines. And Light's idea was, okay, well, I don't want her to find out my true identity, so I'm going to invite a group of friends. So Light, one of the officers, and a group of friends all traveled in groups together, and Ryuk was, of course, floating above them and following them, but Light's logic was, okay, she won't be able to tell who Ryuk is following. It's going to be one of us. But Misa, sitting down in a disguise, what Light didn't know is that with the Shinigami eyes, if she can't see somebody's lifespan, then that's somebody who also has a death note. So Misa figures out exactly who it is. She shows up at his front door at the end of the night, and she just goes, I love you! And Light is like freaking out when this happens. Light is forced to invite her in, and both her, Rem, Misa, Light, everybody is introduced to Ryuk, which is really cool. And then I like every time Ryuk's kind of part of the story, and it makes me wish that he was played a little bit more of a part, because even when him just existing is kind of funny to me. Misa like, hi, I wanted to meet your Shinigami. Ryuk's like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. So Misa ends up just confessing her love for him, why she loves Kira. She's so grateful for everything that she does. Light is kind of put off, like, okay, what is going on here? And she says something along the lines of, she starts freaking out, of course, because Light doesn't really want anything to do with her. And she's like, even if you just use me, I don't care. I just want to be loyal to you. Like the GOAT Misa is, but it's, I guess, the wrong guy to be that devoted to. Light likes the idea of just using Misa and her eyes, but Rem steps in. Rem steps in because she, and what we haven't figured out yet, she loves Misa she told Light and is like, if anything happens to her, if her safety is compromised, I will write your name in my notebook. So Light's forced to keep Misa around. He's not happy about it, but in the meantime, like, they're forced to work together. And she ends up leaving, and she wants to go on dates and all that, but Light is just completely not interested. But he's going to use her. He has to keep her around. He has to figure out a way to kill everybody there but Ryuk. And this is where Light still is he has turned into a horrible person at this point. Misa then puts out a new broadcast saying that she's not going to follow Kira. She's just going to help him. She doesn't want to meet with Kira anymore after all of this work. And L, being the smart guy that he is, figures out that somehow both the Kiras have made contact now because this just doesn't make sense. This really worried L. So L is just, again, worried about the entire possibility of being murdered after this. He instructs everybody to arrest Light because if he dies within the next few days, Light is Kira. Light goes like, what the heck's going on? But L is he's so much smarter than everybody else. You know, it's crazy that he can catch on to somebody like Kira and follow him. But anyways, Light and L end up meeting over at college again. Misa comes in, and this new girlfriend that nobody has been talking to, right? She kind of shows up, and what we think that we end up thinking that this new person that nobody's ever heard of, L, is kind of suspicious right away that, okay, if Light's Kira, this could very well be the second Kira. Because on Light, new girlfriend, and she's already so obsessed with him, like, oh my god, Light! And then it turns out that Ryuzaki was like, oh my god, Misa, I'm a big fan of this issue, and he actually turns out like he kind of was a big fan. He ended up touching her in a crowd or something like that, but the touching her actually ended up being taking her phone. So what everybody was led to believe that this was where, okay, well, Light, everything's okay. Ryuzaki's just a fan. But he ended up taking their phone because once they left and Light was like, oh my god, it was a mistake to come here today, L, because Misa could see L's true name. And Misa, even when she was meeting L, she's like, hi, nice to meet you. And he's like, oh, Ryuzaki. And she's like, but Misa hasn't figured that out. And Light's like, yes. So they're walking away. Light immediately calls Misa. And L has the phone like this, just sitting there. And we know that is a big issue, because L obviously figured it out. Just turns around, L has some aura to him, man. He looks to Light and he's like, oh, I just want to inform you that we've just arrested Misa and Mane for being the second Kira. And Light's like, what? And this is where I have issues with L too, because L is willing to do anything to get the job done. L isn't a very righteous person either, because he instructed Watery to torture Misa and make her talk. After so much time, she couldn't take it anymore, and Misa relinquished ownership of her Death Note and told Rem to. I don't remember how she told her to, but there was a cue or something like that, and that would erase all of her memories if she doesn't have the Death Note anymore. So she ends up kind of sitting there after being like, I'll never talk. But Rem also tells her that her feelings for Light will remain. So all of a sudden she's yapping, going, oh, Mr. Stalker, and everybody's like super confused about it because it's just a giant change of heart. And the same thing ends up happening to Light. Light kind of goes crazy, and he's like, Ryuzaki, I'm not sure. I might be subconsciously Kira. And the viewer and L was even like, okay, really? Why is he doing this now? So we suggest be locked up. They lock him up. And we're brought to Light's entire plan with the Death Note, but we don't exactly know what the end goal about it is. But it turns out where Light kind of does the same thing. He relinquishes ownership of the Death Note by just saying, get rid of it. And Ryuk's like, all right, see you later. And Light does kind of the same thing that Misa was doing, where Misa just kind of started freaking out, talking about Stalker. Light, all of a sudden, he's sitting there like this, and he's like, huh, wait, Ryuzaki, I just realized I don't want to be part of this. I'm not Kira. I want to help him. I want nothing more than to come find him than to come kill him. And L's puzzled by this too, because of course, Misa and Light are both doing the same thing. Could it actually be subconscious killings by Kira? Is Kira something that people can't control? Because Light was also talking about something like, I have found myself like thinking that the world would be better without some people. I thought it was a little bit of a dumb plan, but I mean, it couldn't hurt, right? Executions stop, but then they start up again, leading to believe, like, what if this is actually something subconscious? What if Kira's powers ended up getting transferred? Now, us knowing this isn't really, it's not that believable, but if you think about it from their situation, not knowing anything that's going on, like these gods of death, this power of just to give people heart attacks, to control people, to have a face and a name just to control people and do whatever you want, I guess anything really is feasible. But because the killings are going on again, criminals are being punished again, L is forced to just say, hey, this may not be Kira. But although L is secretly still focused, but even L opens up the possibility of like, maybe I just want you to be Kira. But anyways, they come up with this big stunt where Light's father drags them both into where he convinces them that he's going to kill them all and then kill himself because they figured out that you're Kira and it's a subconscious thing and they've already decided that you're being publicly executed. So he ends up blowing I don't remember if he ended up shooting out the window or something, or if the gun just wasn't loaded. I don't recall exactly what it was. But honestly, at the time, I wasn't really sure what to think because I thought it was like such a weird situation. Like, really? He's gonna, like, is he actually gonna try and kill his own son? Can the powers come back somehow? And their logic was if Misa was the second Kira who only needs a face, she would have stepped in at that point. The gun blows. We don't know what's going on and nothing happens. So they are officially not suspected anymore, except for L. And L figured out everything still suspects Light no matter what. He's like, all right, how you doing this? And this is what I love about it. It's like it's one of the best cat and mouse stories I've ever watched in my entire life. L is still suspicious of Misa, especially because Misa's DNA was found on packages that were mailed to the station claiming to be the second Kira. They came up with an explanation for that, but I don't really recall what it is. But anyways, with that episode that we're watching, we end off with being brought back to Rem with a circle of business people who now have the new Death Note. She gave it to somebody else, and they're discussing who to kill. L and Light are now working together to solve the Kira case, and Light, like, legitimately wants to catch Kira now because he has no memories, and he wants to be a policeman, and this is what he wanted to do even before he actually got a hold of the notebook. So they end up figuring out that Kira might be killing for a monetary profit because this Yotsuba group, people have been dying that has just been working out for them. So they have their suspicions right away, and there isn't a ton else to really talk about with this little part because it's kind of them just talking about the idea of, like, what this new Kira could be. L still suspecting Light and Misa, and the only really thing to note in this little place is Aizawa ended up quitting because L was suspicious of his loyalty, and we're brought to a really, really beautiful moment because all he's been doing 24/7 is worrying about dying because policemen have been dropping dead, and he's been away from his family. So his wife and kids run into him at the P to the A to the R to the K. I have to spell that word because this one over here, this beautiful little thing, she's kind of sleeping, but she is going to spring up, and I will no longer have a video to record. Which, by the way, I apologize in advance if I have to pause this because my wife's coming home with the baby, and I might have to help her get out of the car and stuff. So you may see me in different clothes because I might have to continue this video down the road. But anyways, Aizawa's sitting down, and he ends up crying, and his kid's like, Mommy, why is Daddy crying? And he's really, really happy where he's like, I can go get ice cream with you. Or he said something along those lines. He's like, yeah, you want to hang out? You want to go on the playground? Like, it was a really, really beautiful thing and showed, like, how much he was really dedicated to work. And I thought it was like, I don't know, this show does a really good job in making you really feel some of the moments. And even moving forward, though, there's not a ton that really has to do with the core story, and at least, like, I don't really know how much is worth, like, really diving into because we have this kind of part where Matsuda feels inferior to the rest of the group because L's like, yeah, you can help. Get me another coffee, would you? 2 sugar, like, and it led to him kind of wanting to figure out the case on his own, but he ended up getting captured. He had to pose as Misa's manager, and he ended up having to fake his death, and that's how he got out of that entire situation. Not a ton of note, to be honest with you. In the meantime, everybody starts putting surveillance cameras and wiretaps into that business meeting place with all of the circles, and they need to figure out that which one of them is Kira, but they don't know which one. They know one of them is Kira. They know one of them. So I don't remember why they made the decision to call one of them, but they ended up bringing up one of them and was like, hey, you need to listen up right now. If you move or make it seem like there's anything that's going on right now, we'll arrest you. But they end up having them acting as a spy to figure out which person in that room is Kira, but I guess they determined that it wasn't that person. I apologize. Been a while. I don't remember exactly how they figured that out. Because Matsuda ended up being Misa's manager, they ended up having a meeting with Misa, and there was a little bit of drama between like Light not wanting Misa to end up getting hurt, but Misa ended up wanting to solve the case either way. So they have a meeting as to kind of like why we should be sponsoring Misa, and she ends up asking for a break to go to the washroom because her task was to figure out which one of them is Kira, but she goes to the bathroom, and this is where we are reintroduced to Rem. But, of course, Misa's memories are erased. Rem touches her with a notebook, and I think she ended up covering her mouth. She made Misa be quiet somehow, but Misa's freaking out because, like, there's this monster. Who are you? She thinks she's going to die. But then what Rem tells her is, you're looking for whoever Kira is. The person who I will be standing behind is the Kira. I need you to trust me and trust Light with all your heart to avoid dying. You are in a very, very dangerous situation. Misa ends up kind of regaining herself, trusting the Shinigami, not knowing who she is, and Rem, we still... it's been suggested, but it's easy to look on hindsight that Rem ended up loving Misa and just wanted the best for her because she did threaten Light. But I don't think it was kind of cluing into that Rem was willing to die for her, but that's besides the point. She ends up sitting back down in the meeting. She figures out which one is Kira. She figures out that his name is Higuchi, and I might be pronouncing that a little bit wrong. I had to remember with my notes over here. Sorry, I don't remember. I have trouble remembering a lot of character and anime names because like Higuchi, I never remember. Sorichio or something like that is Light's father, but it's easy to say Light's father. So Higuchi ends up going on a date with Misa, and he thinks Misa's the perfect person for him. Misa ends up talking about like how much she loves Kira, and she ended up revealing that she was the second Kira. She came up with a beautiful plan herself, and then Higuchi kind of laughs it off like, okay, you're the second Kira, and she's like, let me prove it to you. Let me prove it to you. See that person over there? Or she ended up talking about killing somebody, and Rem kind of clues in. She's like, okay, Misa, you want me to write that person's name in the book. So Rem ended up helping out, and then Higuchi is completely convinced that like he's in the car with the second Kira, and he already wants to marry this girl. Misa figures it out, goes back home, goes back to headquarters, like, this is the second Kira, this is why. Got all the information out of him, and here is the recording of him admitting that he's Kira. L doesn't like this because L wasn't able to figure that out for himself, so he still suspects Misa of being the second Kira, or at least criticizing her for whatever reason. She's like, come on! And it's really funny when L just looks at her like, yeah, wonder why he did that. Could be because of the second Kira, and then Misa freaks out. I always like those interactions, personally. It's suggested that they arrest Higuchi right away, but L wants to learn how exactly Kira kills, so he doesn't do that yet. So they end up having this Kira special where they have Matsuda going on the Sakura TV show and kind of saying, hey, I'm going to figure out who it is, and he ended up like having this fake accident, so the Higuchi would turn on the TV and see his face, and the spy that is working with the police force ended up telling him to turn on the TV like, hey, this is bad, we're going to figure out who it is. So he rushes, and he's in his car like trying to figure out the name of this person because he needs to kill them. And because the police ended up installing wiretaps and everything, they're watching him, and he's talking to Rem in the back seat, just driving, and then everybody's like, who could he possibly be talking to? And L actually figures out with the mention of Shinigami and the stupid mistake Light made earlier and being a little bit arrogant. He actually thinks about the possibility of him talking about a Shinigami. Higuchi ends up going to the TV station or wherever they figured out Matsuda's name, and it ended up being, of course, a fake name, but he wanted to try it anyways. Rem was telling him to do it. So he's in his car. He thinks that he's going to kill Matsuda before Matsuda reveals who Kira is, and it's not working. So he's freaking out in the car, and then Light and L watching him is kind of like, what's he freaking out? And then L goes, he might have actually just tried to use the way that he kills, and they're still like really, really not figuring out what's going on here. So they just decide to arrest him. There's a high-speed chase. They end up blocking everybody. Everybody is blocking their face, and L orders for everybody to just go down and arrest Higuchi, but don't show him your face. He doesn't need a name and a face, or he possibly might not need a name and the face. Higuchi is caught. Higuchi is arrested and charged, where they tell him like, you are Kira and responsible for all of these murders. They get a hold of the Death Note, and L figures out that Shinigami actually do exist. He's looking at it. He's shocked. He's fascinated. Light then goes, hey, Ryuzaki, let me see. He grabs the Death Note, and then we're brought to this like insane moment where all of Light's memories are coming back. He turns evil, and I love what they do with the eyes, from blue to red, and he just goes, I've won. I've won. He knew he'd be wearing the watch. He kind of just pretends like he's going to do something on the computer with the Death Note. He has a little piece of the Death Note in his watch, and he writes down Higuchi's name and kills Higuchi. One of the craziest episodes, and that's actually one of my favorite parts about the entire Death Note. Like, it was just so chaotic, and I love the satisfaction of actually having the Shinigami revealed and Light getting his memories back. We have the notebook taken back to Task Force headquarters, and Light had Ryuk write in a couple fake rules. One being that a person must write a name in a book every 13 days or that person will die. They figured out that, that must mean that Light's innocent because Light and Misa were captured the entire time. Light then talks to Misa, now having all of his memories regained, and orders Misa to go to a specific location to get her buried Death Note. She ends up getting all of her memories back, but she doesn't have the Shinigami ideal. She then halvens her life again. She makes the deal with Ryuk. She wants the Shinigami eyes. She wants to be devoted to light. Misa is amazing. Misa is one of the most perfect girls anybody can find in all of fiction. But of course, this means that she's cut her life in half twice. We are then brought to what is kind of known as the climax of the show to many people, because a lot of people only liked this first Light versus L saga. I personally loved it all. If I had to choose, I liked the fight between Light and L just a little bit more, but I'm glad that there was a conclusion to it and they figured it out and they continued on, and Light had a victory, Light had a defeat. I personally liked the way that they told the entire story. So L keeps asking Rem about the death notes, and Rem reveals as little of information as possible, saying things like, I don't know, could be true, could not be true, because obviously she doesn't want to incriminate Misa. But L is really, really suspicious still. As always, he's super suspicious. So Misa, in the meantime, is still using the death note to kill criminals, which L becomes suspicious of, despite Light just going, hey, she's not part of it, we're innocent, we figured it all out. And Rem ends up having a realization, which I didn't see at the time watching it, but now I'm kind of like, how did I not realize that? Because in the show, we just see the clip with Rem going, Light, you are truly despicable. That's your plan. And Light's plan ended up being to have Misa continue to kill criminals, so L would get onto it, and then he'd figure out that Misa is the second Kira or the main Kira. And then because Rem loves Misa, she would kill L. And then because she interfered with Misa dying, or Misa's life, or L's life, excuse me, she would die herself. So Light would have all of his problems taken care of. I didn't see that coming. I don't know if anybody else did, but regardless, we're brought into a really, really sad scene with L on the roof with some water, or raining with some water. Why did I say that? And Light kind of goes out and's like, what are you doing out here? And L knows that he's going to die. He's kind of, and this is the weird thing too, because there's this weird scene where they're kind of drying each other, and L is he's talking to Light, and he said that you're like the only friend that I've ever had. And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if L liked Light. I don't know if L had a complicated relationship with Light. Maybe he didn't want him to be Kira. And I know Light hated L the whole time. He just wanted to kill. He's ruthless. But I don't know how L really felt about Light. He could have hated Light. He kind of just wanted to get a reaction from Light to maybe spare him or something along those lines. I don't really know what to make of that entire situation. But in that same time, sorry, I can hear my dog getting off the couch. Yeah, anybody have a golden doodle? This is how they dismount from the couch. Hi, baby. Hi, sunny girl. But there was another part, anyways. It never gets old, man. There was another part where L just looks at Light and he goes, is there any time in your life where you've ever told the truth? He knows that Light's Kira, but he can't do anything about it. He's convinced completely. We then figure out that L reveals his plan to test the 13-day rule because he thinks that rule might be a fake. Light might have just put it in there and had this entire plan because it doesn't make sense that Light wanted to come up with that idea to keep himself locked up because he was going crazy about it. And even L himself said, if this works, if you let me do this, the entire case will be solved. Rem then takes an action. She kills Watery. Watery deletes all the data on the computers, and L explains that if something were to happen to Watery, he said that he would delete everything before he goes. And so Rem steps into action too. L asks where the Shinigami is, and you can see her writing L's name. L falls from his chair, and Light, being the little scumbag that he is, catches L. And you can see like that they do such a good job, man, at showing Light without saying anything in his true thoughts. He has that evil, evil, evil smile. He's looking at him like, I can't even replicate it, man. It's just pure evil. And he's still, he puts on this act where he's like, where are you, Shinigami? Where are you? I will pay. I will find Kira. And of course, he's going to take the new position as L because L said that he's the only one that can succeed him. They find Rem's remains, which is just a bunch of sand, and they're stuck. L and Watery are both gone now. We have a bunch of dialogue where Light kind of just silently celebrates his own victory. He stole Rem's death note in the sand. I don't know if he knew where she died, but he was kind of looking for her, but he ended up taking the notebook for himself. And I really, really enjoyed the entire L saga, and I know a lot of people didn't like what is to come. I personally really enjoyed it, but of course, like, I would imagine this is going to be the majority of the video. I would imagine that I don't have nearly enough to say about the next part that I did with L. I just thought it was fantastic, man. I love the idea of Light having a huge, major victory of this, and then going up against somebody else again, and then end up losing because of his arrogance. The show then jumps about 5 years, and Light finds himself bored. He doesn't have any competition. I think he even notes that this isn't any fun anymore. He's just punishing criminals. He is becoming the god of the new world. Crime has decreased drastically over the years. It's shown in different scenarios where it's like, please do anything but broadcast my name on TV, please, or I'll die. And Light has created the perfect society where people are incentivized to do good. It's incredible. It's perfect. I love it. Like, that's a society you would want to live in, where criminals are afraid to be criminals, man. It's so cool. And Light's not really killing anybody innocent because he's still not forgiven for what he's done in the past, but nobody's going up against him, which is amazing. The task force wanted to keep L's death a secret, but it's figured out by some old dude at a location that we've never seen before, and he relays this information to 2 children. The show then introduces us to L's successors, Mello and Nier wants the 2 to work together because they could solve the Kira case no problem, and Mello just has always wanted to be the successor of L. He didn't want to team up with Nier. He's not really selfish, he's more jealous that he is not the person. L never actually said who was going to take over for him. Little did they know, L actually said Light was the guy, which is super weird. So this is kind of where I believe they said L was brought up, but regardless, there's these new, it's an entire orphanage where they kind of just, I don't want to say they breed kids, but they produce children to make them smarter, or they have a bunch of special kids come in, like people with special talents that are really smart, and just to become these amazing, amazing detectives. So they're informed about L's death. They want to solve the Kira case. Mello ends up taking action. He wants to become the next L. He ends up kidnapping somebody. Light just takes care of it like that. So what Mello does, and before he ends up kidnapping Sayu, we're introduced to Light's family again because it's 5 years down the road, right? Sayu's grown up, and we have this like really nice reunion with Sayu, and she's like this adult, beautiful girl. She's all grown up now. She gets kidnapped by Mello. She gets kidnapped by Mello, and Nier decides to start investigating this, and he knows that somebody ended up replacing L. We then have a really cool series of events where it's just they go on a mission to end up rescuing Sayu, and I thought it was really cool, and this is where Light's father really takes charge here, because he ends up taking the Death Note and he exchanges it for Sayu, which ends up being an okay trade, but there's this underground facility that they couldn't really figure out where it was. Mello ended up getting control of the Death Note, and he had this really funny interaction with the Shinigami. He starts going on a little bit of a killing rampage. There's a lot of action here, but not a ton to talk about at this moment. And Nier opens up to L, which is Light, but he opens up to the new L, saying that he thinks this kidnapping was done by a guy named Mello, and he thinks that he's just motivated by wanting to be the first one to be the guy to catch Kira. He's not open to collaborating with anybody. So Light and Nier kind of have a little bit of an arrangement to start working together. And I think this is a good note to pause and kind of say what I think about Nier and Mello. Mello's a really cool character. He's unique to the show. I understand his motives. I like that he's jealous. I like that he is a little bit insecure. It's really cool to see. Plus, he's really, really smart. Nier is just kind of a knockoff version of L, and I understand why people don't like him, but at the end of the day, I did like how the story told it. This is supposed to be L's successor. He's young. This is all that he does. I don't see an issue with it personally. I don't. He's just another L, but he's not as charismatic. That's the thing. Nier just sits down. He has his bobbleheads, which that's the only thing that I thought was weird. I didn't like that he was playing with toys, but I get it. Like, he's just a smart kid, and that's kind of how he's representing everything. I didn't have a problem with him at all. But continuing on, we're actually brought to the Shinigami realm, and I wish that they opened up about the Shinigami realm a little bit more, because I thought it was really cool, just the scenery, watching the Shinigami speak together. And there's this new Shinigami, the name is escaping me. He lost his Death Note, but another Shinigami says that Ryuk stole it. That's how we have 2 Death Notes. So he has to go to the human world to go find it and take it back from Ryuk. Now, what's really funny is the Shinigami goes down to the human world and he finds Ryuk. And I found it funny, like anytime Ryuk's kind of on the screen, I find it really entertaining. So he's following Ryuk around going, I want my notebook. And Ryuk's like, I don't know where your notebook is. You're going to have to go find it. And it's just, he was following Ryuk around, being really annoying. I think that's pretty funny. And the Shinigami ended up finding Mello after so much time. And Mello ended up figuring out by the new Shinigami that 13-day rule is fake, and that's going to be a big problem for Light, of course, down the road a little bit. Now, the actual rescue mission comes down where Light's father ends up actually saving the day for Sayu, excuse me, and he did the Shinigami ideal with Ryuk, so he is on a killing spree. This dude can see the lifespan of everybody, and he figures out that Mello's name is Michael Keel, and that's a little bit of a problem for Mello because he was keeping that, of course, his identity a secret. But now, before he could write Michael Keel in the death note, he ended up getting shot. Mello ended up escaping with a bunch of explosives, and Light's father, excuse me, my child is kind of sleeping kind of not next to me. I don't know if my microphone picked that up, eh, baby? She's in a little cradle thing next to me over here. But anyways, Light's father's in the hospital. Light's father is dying, and we have this really, really beautiful moment, but kind of cruel at the same time because Light is more evil than ever. But at this time, he ended up relinquishing ownership of his death note while keeping his memories, and Light's father's looking at him, and he starts crying on his deathbed, saying, like, I am so relieved. I can see your lifespan. You are not Kira. My son isn't Kira. And he dies peacefully. But is it really going to be peaceful? Because he used the death note. Now he's not going to go to neither heaven or hell. And it seems like he's going to turn into a Shinigami. That's what we're going to talk about when this video kind of comes to a close over here. Because I know that seems like a theory that's been going on, right? Where you become a Shinigami after you die. So Light's father, unknowingly, just because his daughter got kidnapped and he wanted to save the day, is not going to go to heaven or hell. That's what Ryuk said, right? And it seems like that's the Shinigami realm. Light, being more evil than ever, is just acting again. But at this point where we figure out, and we figured out at the end of the episode, or not the end of the episode, the end of the series, that he didn't care that his father died. He has slipped completely into darkness now, which, Light's evil. How could you not care that your father died? It was all an act? That's crazy to me. But at least Mr. Yagami ended up dying with his heart warmed because his son wasn't Kira, supposedly. The 13-day rule then comes to haunt Light just a little bit. Before that happens, America actually announces that they are going to be neutral against Kira. What Light ends up doing is being the Kira and threatening to figure out the location of the SBK because they're currently trying to find Kira. That's Nier's organization. But Nier ends up contacting Task Force headquarters and asking, because Mello ended up revealing to Nier that some of the notes in the death note are fake, and he revealed everything about Nier that he kind of needs to know right now. So Nier asks if the L was ever under suspicion about being Kira. They say yes, but of course the 13-day rule protected that. Now Nier suggests that they test the 13-day rule. Light's being smart about it. He's like, well, I can't say that because he suspects me now. Here we go again. Like, they think I'm Kira for some reason. And so everybody just says that they don't want to test the 13-day rule. The death note, they don't want to play with those rules. They're not gonna kill. They're not gonna use the death note. And Nier is now officially suspecting the new L, being Light, to be the actual Kira. Aizawa at this point, and I don't think I mentioned it, is back on the task force, and he actually kind of sits back and goes, really, could it be Light? The first L suspecting him. Now this new N is suspecting him too. So Nier says, hey, any of you are welcome to give me a call. And Light, still playing neutral, says, hey, if you want to give him a call, give him a call. I would understand. I have nothing to hide. He's playing really, really cool about it. But Aizawa and one of the other agents really just don't trust Light at all. I don't know what really did it, to be honest with you, because Light seemingly proved his innocence to everybody. Why kind of the switch up? Is it just because both L and N are now suspecting Light? I didn't really know, but regardless, it's understandable that after all of this, you start suspecting Light, but Light's playing it like really, really cool. If you got to think about it like if you were in this situation, right? Would you suspect Light? Would you even suspect that one of the rules are fake? I guess you could. It seems a little bit improbable, though. Now, all of a sudden, Kira's followers have been demanded to break into the SPK headquarters in New York, so protesters started storming the building because these guys are trying to catch Kira. What's going on? Nier then figures out, hey, this is actually quite a coincidental time for this to be happening. So he figures out that Light is actually Kira, or at least he deducts it himself. He figures it out. He is pretty well convinced. So he ends up getting by because they're all rich. He ends up raining money, and the protesters are like, Kira, what? It's raining money! And then it all ends up being okay. So Light ends up having a new plan, which isn't revealed to us just yet. He ends up shooting Misa and Email, and this is where Aizawa actually ends up giving Nier a call. Aizawa ends up talking to him about the entirety of the past investigation. Light's A-okay with it. He tells Light, and Light's like, hey, if that's okay with you, I got nothing to hide. Light's playing really cool about it, and Aizawa also opens up to Light that he wants to put Light and Misa under surveillance again. Light's like, yeah, I got nothing to hide. Sorry, my baby is making some noise. She's fighting sleep right now. I'm sorry about the interruptions for this video. If you comment down below, let me know if this is something that you want me to cut out moving forward. I will absolutely do that. And yeah, I brought her down here to record because she's almost asleep. She's almost asleep. Why don't you sleep? Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has kids over here, but she's kind of like sucking on it. Like she's self-soothing really well. She sucks on her finger and she's like this. And then she'll make a noise like that. I hope my mic's picking it up or I'll just sound crazy. But anyways, my apologies. Now, interestingly enough, and this is something that I never saw coming throughout the entire show, is Light expanded his team. Because obviously Light's under surveillance now. He chose this guy named Mikumi, who has always been a supporter of Kira. We're brought through his entire childhood and how, actually, Mikumi's a pretty good guy. Mikumi has a great sense of justice and actually aligns with, and to use Light's words, he understands Kira's mission and is the perfect person to continue on and share his powers with. And Light's kind of acting like a god. He gave magic to this Death Note, and Mikumi, after seeing throughout his entire life, he's very methodical, very careful. He's a very intelligent person, and above all, he wants to protect people. He wants to rid the world of evil. So honestly, I would argue that Mikumi's a really good guy. And Light ended up giving Mikumi the Death Note, and he started passing judgment. We just brought to this guy going, delete, delete. And in the meantime, Light also chooses Kiyomi, who is a past girlfriend of his, and he kind of pretends to be interested in her as a new spokesperson for Kira. Well, she was kind of like, I don't remember if she was already a spokesperson or if she was just a news anchor, but regardless, Light expanded his team to 2 people, which is, I did not see that coming one little bit. We then have a series of events where Nier and his team travels to Japan, and him and Light silently have one of those like face-offs that Death Note have been having, which is like really cool. Light's ecstatic. Light is arrogant at this point. Sure that if he could beat L, and he's even saying along the course of this, I don't remember when exactly it was, but there was a point where he said that, like, you are a disgrace to L's name. You are nothing like him. This is too easy, right? So they are both very confident that they will beat each other, and we also have a couple scenarios where Misa and Takeda end up going out to dinner. She calls Misa stupid. Misa kind of freaks out, and Misa's really, really jealous. Understandably so. Light admits to Kiyomi. What am I even saying? Kiyomi Takeda. That's her name. Apologies. That he wants her to be the goddess of the new world. And he's kind of saying like I don't remember what the excuse was. He was like stuck in his marriage or he's planning on leaving. Misa doesn't meet him on an intellectual level like Takeda does, right? In the meantime, though, Nier does figure out that Kira is communicating through Megumi. Megumi's giving them calls. The task force was forced to remove all bugs from the room so Light can communicate with Kiyomi, just through notes. And when all the bugs were removed, they ended up being free to speak. And in the meantime, like I said, Megumi was found out by one of Nier's guys. Sorry, that was a little bit of a mess there. There's a lot going on here. So Nier's plan continues as they follow Megumi, and Megumi doesn't know that anybody's following him, and they're able to get into his locker. There's this really, really tense scene that, because they know there is a Shinigami with the notebook, where one of Nier's agents touches a notebook, but there's no Shinigami, so everything's okay. He starts taking pictures of it, but in the meantime, Aizawa officially believes that Light is Kira, because he's worried that Light might be passing notes, so he leaves his own little mark, which was very, very smart. And it's a little bit shocking that Light hasn't caught on to that, but then again, Light has become arrogant over these years, right? So I guess that kind of makes sense, and he figured out that Light was passing notes. It's confirmed. And then he's like, okay, Light actually might be Kira. In the meantime, the SBK ends up picking up Misa and kind of captures her, makes her think that she's okay, but Misa just kind of went willingly because he's like, hey, Misa, you're in trouble. But other than that, they're still monitoring the Death Note. They're watching Megumi, and it seems like Light's very confident that everything will be okay, and he kind of knows that Nier is investigating, but Nier is also just as confident, and I actually at this point didn't know who was going to end up winning. I was kind of rooting for Light, kind of not, because I still love Light's message, but the dude did too many unspeakable things. He's evil at this point. How could you cheer for somebody like that? But at the end of the day, the world is better. You know, that's the problem. But Light shouldn't be killing innocent people, and I don't think that's excusable. Ever. Ever. I don't care who he sacrificed. He sacrificed innocent police officers. I can't cheer for him. But now we are brought to a really, really sad episode. Mello comes back, ends up saving the day, and capturing Takeda. He brings her to a very uncomfortable location. She's in the back of a truck. He makes her strip naked and kind of leaves her there. I don't really remember why he left, but regardless, he said, take off all of your clothes, and he gave her a little bit of a towel, and he stepped out, but I don't recall why he stepped out. It doesn't really matter. She ended up calling Light for help, desperate. desperate. And what the task force believes, except for Aizawa, is that they're just seeing each other again, or Light is pretending because like to get her on his side to expose Kira, because he ended up passing a note with which had a script on it where she kind of read exactly what Light wanted to say. But she's desperate. She's calling for help. And as far as I know, Takada's a good person. She just likes Kira, and I don't think there's anything wrong with liking Kira, because the general public doesn't know what an evil, evil person Kira has become. So that's understandable. She's naked, hurt, kidnapped, scared, alone in a truck, and Light just doesn't care. He says to, hey, do you remember what we told you to do if something like this ever came up? She has a piece of the death note. She writes Mello's name, kills him, and now she's not going to go to heaven or hell, a perfectly normal woman, which is horrible. And then Light decides to write her name in the death note by setting fire to everything around her, destroying all of the evidence. Again, another reason as to why Light is just pure evil now. He doesn't care who has to sacrifice. He's selfish. And something that I forgot to mention earlier is that he was considering killing his own sister. He kept saying, oh my god, am I going to have to kill Sayu? He didn't really want to, but he seemed like not too bothered about it if he ended up having to. Like, Light is pure evil now. And this is what I love about the series, because you have the arguments like, is Kira good? Is Kira bad? Light did all these unspeakable things. Is L a good guy because he's willing to do whatever it takes necessary? He's sacrificing criminals. There's so much to this story that I absolutely love. The show then brings us to its official climax where Light and Nier agree to meet, both of them knowing that they're going to catch the other person. Light's going to kill Nier. Light's going to kill pretty much everybody, and Nier is going to catch Light. Both of them are insanely confident, and after a few days, they agree to meet all together in a warehouse. Everybody meets face to face. It's very, very tense. Light is so arrogant, and Nier is, I would say Nier is confident, not arrogant, and that's the big difference, excuse me. Bless you, baby. Still not sleeping, by the way. Almost there, but anyways, they are, Nier ends up saying that nobody's gonna die. Megami's gonna come in. Light's okay with this, and people start freaking out because they're like, what? You're gonna let him just peek in and write everybody's name in the death note? And Nier's like, trust me, nobody would die. Nobody will die. I wouldn't trust that if I was any police officer there. I wouldn't trust that one little bit, but everybody trusted it. Megami shows up. Light's so confident. Light is even laughing to himself. Like, we're brought to his internal thoughts, and he's like, they're all gonna die. They're all gonna die. Like, he's so evil at this point, right? Megami writes all the names. 60 seconds goes by. Light looks up from his watch and goes, well, Nier, looks like I win. Nobody dies. That gave me chills, man. That literally gave me chills. He doesn't understand why it works. Light kind of has a freaky look on his face. They invite Megami in, and what happened was Megami ended up acting upon himself because Light, through a phone call, said that he couldn't move. And that allowed Nier to make a replica of the Death Note and replace it with Megami's, because Megami was going to use it when it was supposed to be fried up with Miss, oh my god, the name's escaping me. The Goddess of the New World. I'm sorry. These anime names, man. And Light ended up being caught because he exposed himself to a new team. Somebody else ended up being his downfall, which I don't think Megami was entirely wrong to assume what he did. Light said that he couldn't move. Light said that he was compromised, and Megami was kind of taking care of the situation. I guess they should have found a way to communicate a little bit more before Light even ends up doing the same thing, because what I find funny is Light's successful tactic at the beginning of the show with Ray Pember's wife. He goes, well, that'd be because I'm Kira, and then that same thing is what ended up getting him caught. He would have been caught either way because Megami wrote everybody in the room's name except for Light's, and that would have been enough to arrest him either way. And so Light freaks out. I don't think we've seen him freak out the entire time as Kira. When he got his memories erased, he starts like, no, this is impossible. This is all Nier's plan to frame me. And it's like, he's freaking out. And then even Aizawa looks at him and goes, Light, we don't need more of a confession. You said, Nier, it looks like I win. Light's breathing heavy. Light's freaking out. Megami stabs himself, and what's the oddest thing of the show, blood starts spraying everywhere, which is, again, super weird, but Light ended up having one more final moment with the hidden piece of note in his watch. He tries to write somebody's name in it, probably Nier's, but I don't even think, he didn't know Nier's name, did he? Regardless, he starts writing names, he starts using the death note that's in his watch, and Matsuda of all people, and this is what I liked about it. I love that they chose Matsuda to be the one to actually be the guy to kill Light. Well, not necessarily kill, but pretty much. He ended up shooting Light, and he was going to shoot him in the head. After the guy who believed in Light the whole time. He must have been so hurt. He was the only guy to really, truly never suspect Light. He looked up to Light. He thought he was cool. He thought they were really, really good friends, and they thought they were going to work together. And he even, like, got on top of Light. He shot him a bunch of times, and even Light still looked at him with the arrogance going, Matsuda, you idiot! Shoot them! And then Matsuda was actually going to shoot Light in the head, and then somebody else had to protect Matsuda from killing Light in cold blood. Light ends up escaping because Megumi ended up self-deleting, and Nier just goes, okay, he's not going to go far. He has too many bullet holes, and Light's running away. He's dying, and this is where we're brought back to Ryuk, and Ryuk said, well, something to the extent of, well, Light, I told you at the beginning of this, I was going to be the one to write your name in my notebook, and I'm not going to wait for you to rot 50 years in a jail cell. I'm just going to kill you now. Our story ends here. And he kind of ended up thanking Light for curing his boredom, and Light ended up dying. The only thing that I don't know till this day, what happened with Misa, because she just boarded a train. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I never looked it up. And I probably will end up doing that right after I'm done making this, actually, because now I'm incredibly curious about it. I'm sure I meant to do it when I was watching the show, but man, I thought this whole thing was fantastic. It's one of the greatest series I've ever watched. It was my first anime show besides... Bless you. It was my first anime show besides, like, the things that I watched from a kid, and I don't even know if that's considered as anime shows because I watched Yu-Gi-Oh!, I watched Sonic, I watched Dinosaur King, all those cartoons when I was young, and today we have your final interruption of the video. Guys, honestly, comment down below, and please let me know if you want me to just cut this stuff out and only record when I don't have this stuff going on. She finally fell asleep when I picked her up. But as I was saying, to close out this video, I know some people consider it anime, some people don't consider it anime. I don't really, it doesn't matter to me, but this was the first thing, and my brother introduced it to me, and it was, I can't say enough good things about it. It's one of the best series I've ever watched, and I want to talk about the ending for a moment. I actually am kind of all about that theory that Light became a Shinigami after death, because Ryuk at the beginning of the series, and even there at the beginning of the series, there was a Shinigami, or throughout, it was the beginning of this series where there was a Shinigami there, and it just looked like Light. It looked exactly like Light. The transformation was there. There was something about an apple, but I don't remember what the apple exactly was, but it makes sense because Ryuk was always telling Light that you go to nothingness after death. That you don't go to heaven, you don't go to hell, and it's kind of suggested that you become a Shinigami, and that I believe that Shinigami we did see is Light. But then I think about all the people who ended up using the Death Note, specifically Light's father and the goddess of the New World. The name is escaping me at the moment again, and it's just really, really unfortunate for the story that those people don't get to go to heaven. Could you imagine Light's father just sitting back and being, like, all content with life, happy that his son's not Kira, and then he thinks he's going to heaven, maybe gets dragged into nothingness? It's a really, really sad ending when you think about it, and it's a proper ending for Light, to be honest with you. So you could even say that Light could go to the human world as a Shinigami and continue doing what he was doing, but then again, he probably can't really interfere, right? That's where I'm really confused about this whole series, because Shinigami can't interfere with somebody when they're supposed to die. How are they supposed to write names in their books? That's where I'm really, really curious, because Light, assuming that they can just write humans' names in their books, Light could just go to the human world and continue being Kira as a Shinigami, with the Shinigami eyes more powerful than he ever needed to be. Plus, I know he joked at the beginning of this series, it's always been a human dream to fly, and now he would be able to fly. It's just fascinating, man. There are very few cat and mouse stories that I would imagine will ever take over Death Note. I don't personally believe I will watch one that I will like more than Death Note. I loved the chase between him and L. I loved all the way the story was told through everybody thinking, even just making Light red when he thought, L blue when he thought. I liked the introduction of Nier and Mello. I liked that storyline too. I know that it's pretty mixed, that story, but I loved both of them, man. I really, really did. It's a fantastic series, and it's a shame that we never got a sequel or a prequel or anything to that, or even a story about the Shinigami realm. I would like that. They could write something about Ryuk being bored again. I'm sure they could reboot Death Note. It's not like Marvel where they're just absolutely destroy a story. I'm sure there'll be love and care put into a movie. But guys, let me know what you thought about the entire series of Death Note down below. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for watching. On the screen right now, this way. I'm a little bit occupied. If you want to watch Inside Out, it'll be on the top over here, my review, and then at the bottom over here, you will have another anime review. Haven't picked it yet, haven't thought about it. Check it out, either one of those video, guys. Take care.